Hello, everybody. My name's Maya, and my story may seem strange to you. I think we just don't know everything about the world and the things that surround us yet. I will start to speak in a roundabout way so that you understand it clearly. My parents always seemed to me the best ones. It wasn't because we were members of one family, but they were really great people and tried to teach me to be the same. My mother worked as a teacher in a junior school and loved all the kids madly. She never divided us into her own, me and my other classmates. By the way, thanks to her upbringing, we're still very friendly with the whole class, in spite of the fact that we've scattered to different schools. And my dad, actually, he was a usual accountant, but he also volunteered. In his free time, he helped animal shelters. And on the weekends, we volunteered for old people in a nursing home. Everyone loved him, people and animals. You know, he was a man who wouldn't hurt a fly. Seriously, I saw my dad catching a spider that got into our house on a piece of paper, and then he put it out on the grass. I mean, yeah, there was never any cruelty or anything like that in his mind. He never even said curses, although I spoiled the broth quite often, mostly out of natural curiosity. Usually after my adventures, he would sit down with me and explain to me where I was wrong, and why I shouldn't have jumped through a well dug in the ground for the pipes, or why I shouldn't have climbed on the ice in late spring, when our lake had almost melted. Anyway, I was brought up with no punishments, and I memorized the word dangerous very quickly. Anyway, it was a perfect happy life for a little daisy. That's me. And so it was like this until I was 14, a completely cloudless childhood with excellent examples before my eyes. But after, there was an accident. I don't know what happened on the bridge, but on the radio, there was talk about a truck that lost control and went into a fence, falling into the water. But while the truck was spinning on the road, it managed to catch a dozen or more cars. Someone was more lucky, someone less, and someone turned out to be my dad, who was peacefully standing in traffic on his way home from work. His car was hit by the truck's inertia and rolled after it and almost fell into the river. Fortunately, a rescue helicopter had arrived at the place of the accident, and more cars were on the way. Dad was pulled out of the car, but the damage was so much that doctors decided to put him in a coma. Then me and my mom were crying in the hall of the hospital, while my dad, first in the operating room, and then in intensive care, fought for his life. The doctors brought him out of the forced coma, but he didn't wake up. The doctor's diagnosis was extremely pessimistic. They were saying that even if he does wake up, it's unlikely. He won't be able to completely recover, and after 9 days, he opened his eyes and greeted everyone who was in the ward, and Dad managed to bypass medicine. He remembered everything, was aware of everything, and was quite as adequate as possible, even too much for a person under painkillers. In the hospital, he yelled at my mom for the first time. For the first time. It was the first time in my life because, well, he didn't swear at all. Never. And then he just went into a rage. I was a witness at the time. I also helped my mother to take care of him. The doctor, in response to our panic, explained that it was all about the drugs, and we shouldn't be afraid of him or condemn him because Dad hadn't come to his senses yet. A month later, he was discharged from the hospital, being declared completely healthy. But there was only one thing. Have you ever had such a strange feeling when you see a person, know him, but don't perceive him as well, like he was before? It seems like someone else was parodying your relative. Here, when I was next to my dad, I constantly felt something like this. No, I understood very clearly that after the accident and the injuries, it was unlikely my dad would change. So I wrote off all the little things as stress and consequences, even when he started drinking terribly strong black coffee for breakfast, although he used to hate it, preferring healthy green tea. Also, he wasn't holding a spoon as he did before. He wasn't sitting on the couch, and the corner of his mouth was gently pulling when he was talking. And previously, it wasn't like this, as you understand. But truth be told, it could all be attributed to post-traumatic stress disorder. I read that after a coma, people can get some unusual features and new habits. So everything was okay. But there was one change. Like I said before, Dad was never angry and he never swore. And now, at first, he was holding back. It was also visible. And then everything became absolutely terrible. At first, my dad just started cursing, often without even a reason. We had the impression that me and my mom were annoying him. Well, at any rate, he didn't enjoy being around us, and he was always kind of on edge. He started yelling at me, at my mom. Even our cat got hurt for walking everywhere and shredding his shirts. My mom and I told ourselves that everything was all right, and this was a result of stress, and it would pass soon. But my dad's aggression was only gathering pace. Somehow, he became a real anti-hero for me. At work, he constantly had conflicts with someone. He was even arguing with a CEO, whom he used to endlessly respect before. The neighbors started to shy away from him because he would call someone bad names or yell something evil. My mom and I, we got the worst of it because after a few months of constant shouting, my dad started beating us. Seriously, he could hit my mom in the face, and I was an experiment for his old Navy belt. Of course, we were hiding, but it didn't help much. Only made him more angry. I started coming to school with bruises, and social workers got interested. And once, they came to our house for a check. But Dad, as it turned out, had also learned perfect skills of lying during the time he spent in a coma, because he told everyone a touching story about a teenage girl who was going through her worst times. From his fairy tale, it turned out I almost crippled myself because of my teenage period. And the most offensive thing was, they believed him. They didn't even check or examine my mom. And we couldn't say anything because he threatened to torment us, to keep us at home, and that nobody would help us. Anyway, it was a really horrible thing, and we just didn't know what to do. A chance helped us. Really, it was just a fortuity, after which I believed higher powers existed. The fact was that outwardly, Dad tried to play the role of a respectable person, although objectively, he didn't reach himself. But these attempts included mandatory Sunday visits to church with the whole family. As a most ordinary, decent family, at the last sermon, my mom managed to talk to the priest alone. And what he said to her still terrifies us both. The priest said that he saw something evil and dangerous in my dad, and that it definitely wasn't my dad's soul. I really didn't understand what he meant, but it was like there was a demon or something in his body. Honestly, I was quite skeptical about everything at the time, because we were taught in school that demons don't exist. But it doesn't matter whether I believe in it or not. Me and my mom decided to try what the priest suggested, or rather, the exorcism ritual. Like, even if it didn't help, it was really our last chance to go back to our normal life. So, we agreed with the priest, and he asked our dad to help with some men's issues in the church. When Dad had a free evening, there was no reason to refuse. So, as it said, the fly was trapped. Me and my mom were sitting in the main hall and prayed for my dad's soul, while the priest and his assistants were performing their exorcism ritual in the closed part of the church. And I'll be honest with you, it was the worst thing I've ever heard. Such hellish screams. At some point, Dad's screams changed into something otherworldly. There were some strange voices, howls, and then there was silence, and only the quiet murmur of the priest was breaking it a little. I didn't know what it was, or if it was really a demon or some other mystical creature. I'm only sure that my mom also heard the whole horror happening outside the door, because we were both shaking with fear and tried to pray a little louder than necessary, just so we couldn't hear it. Then the priest came out to us and told us to go home, because Dad would be with them for a week. One ritual wasn't enough. And yeah, he said we should pray for his soul at home. A week later, my dad came back to us. This time, my dad was exactly the same as he was before the accident. And I was totally horrified when I found out what was going on in the house while he was away. Yeah, the last thing he remembered was an accident, and then nothing. That is, for him, all those months of the nightmare didn't exist at all. We were happy because our dear and beloved husband and dad had finally returned to us. Dad made up with everyone, apologized to his neighbors and superiors for a long time, resumed his volunteering, and just carried me and my mom in his arms. only for us to forget all the horror that occurred in his absence. The only thing left with him from the accident? Nightmares. He had them often, and there, Dad was walking through a black, eerie void and couldn't find his way out. Personally, for me, I think it's hell. I really don't know what to believe. On the one hand, demons are complete nonsense and Middle Ages stuff. On the other, I saw everything with my own eyes, or rather heard with my own ears. And believe me, it wasn't a prank or something. Everything was as real as possible. I also know for sure that there are higher powers, and they're looking out for us, because if it wasn't for them, I can't imagine what would have happened to all of us. Clearly nothing good, but if we accept the existence of good, then we cannot deny evil. Anyway, philosophy isn't my thing, and I'm very happy that it all had a good ending. Write in the comments what you think about it. What was it? Do you believe in demons, the supernatural, and divine powers? Just for you to be ready, if a person seems strange to you, trust yourself, because you never know how things are going to work out.